I've posted a ton of extra content on Patreon, including tons of practice replays sorted by matchup, a detailed explanation for every single EV spread, a how to team build video with this team as an example, and a whole lot more. I'm posting 3 extra videos a month.
I just bought access to Wolfe Glick's Patreon, and if you're watching this video, maybe you're wondering, should I become a patron too? It's a valid question. Right now, Wolfe has over 21,000 patrons, making him the most supported VGC content creator on the platform. As a visual reference, the difference between Wolfe and the creator after him is like the difference between me and this entire building. No, actually, it's like the difference between me and this entire city. That's a lot of people. And besides feeding into my own crippling sense of inadequacy, the massive number suggests he's got something pretty amazing behind that paywall. Well, lucky for you, I have an answer to the question, should you buy Wolfe Glick's Patreon? The answer is yes, but also more like maybe. Let me explain. If you want to support Wolfe and the content he creates, becoming a patron is a fantastic way to help him grow on his platforms. Perfectly good reason to join. However, longtime viewers of my channel know that I am constantly looking for new content that might help us become better as trainers. So I'm more interested in whether or not the content locked behind Wolfe Glick's Patreon wall can do just that. So in this video, let's dive into the Patreon offerings of one of the world's most influential VGC content creators.
The announcement is that I am making a Patreon, and I'm really excited about this for a number of reasons, which I'm going to talk to you today about. So first of all, before I show you the details,
that's not all, because it is the season of giving, so why not spend all my hard-earned cash on making better content for you guys? In addition to Wolfe's Patreon, I've also become a patron of 2 other prominent VGC pros. So I'll take a look at their content next to see if there's anything there that we might not be able to get from Wolfe Glick's Patreon. Let's dive in.
Real YouTubists, bring back the intro. Did I used to do this in cursive? I can't even remember. If you missed the intro, comment below. Don't know how to do V's in cursive, so I guess not.
Longtime viewers of Wolfe's content will immediately notice something familiar about his Patreon page. Essentially, if you've ever watched his videos on the YouTube channel Bonus Wolfe, you have a pretty good idea of what to expect here. Although there are a few exceptions. For those unfamiliar, Bonus Wolfe was originally the hub for his more unscripted and competitive-centric content before those videos were unlisted. And I'm not just guessing when I say that. Wolfe himself has said he uses his Patreon to share his really geeky, hardcore competitive stuff that's a little bit too niche for his big YouTube audience.
I know a lot of people enjoy a lot of my older content, such as like battle videos, but if I put them up on YouTube, they won't perform very well and it will hurt the overall health of my channels. And so I've been thinking about this for a while, and I decided basically that a Patreon was a really, really good way to kind of put everybody in a win-win situation.
So what does your patronage get you? From my observation, Wolfe consistently uploads 3 types of content: team reports, state of the meta / state of the game reviews, and user voted topics. We'll look at this one later. Let's focus on the latter 2, starting with the state of the game reviews. Now, I deliberately use the term review here because these videos typically reflect on past events rather than predict future trends. It's tricky for me to show you this without stepping over any lines, and it would be disrespectful for me to leak clips from his Patreon. However, if I were to draw parallels to publicly available content, I would say that these videos are very similar to the content that is released by Talon VGC and to some extent CK49. Occasionally there's insight here into potential future meta shifts, but mostly these videos aim to explain why certain teams or Pokemon are currently successful or not. And honestly, while this type of content is excellent if you appreciate Wolfe Glick's presentation style, you don't necessarily need Wolfe's Patreon to access this type of analysis. It exists everywhere. Beyond getting you to think about the game more broadly, there's not much here that could directly elevate your personal play to the next level. Now, his user-voted topics, on the other hand, I think these are game changers. Let's play a game. Which of these 4 topics did Wolfe Glick make a detailed video about on his Patreon page? Do you have a guess? The answer is all of them. Yep, and there's that sense of inadequacy again. If I'm to nitpick something small, it's that the unstructured format of these videos in particular can sometimes obscure his points. But honestly, that's part of the charm of Wolfe's videos, so I won't hold it against him.
Oh yeah, first thing that I want to note is that this shirt is a lot more blue in person. For whatever reason, with the lights, I call this my teacup shirt. I think it's technically like,
Speaking of things that are small, let's talk about my bank account. I pour time, research, and in this case, money into these videos because I'm passionate about the topics. And if you're watching, they probably interest you too. So do me a huge favor. Give these videos a like and consider subscribing if you enjoy these unique, niche VGC videos. If you search YouTube videos on making good predictions, for example, you'll find that there's actually not much out there. Hey, take a look at that. As I explored Wolfe's Patreon, I noticed this pattern with several of the topics that he goes over. This makes sense, as these topics are chosen by his Patreon community, presumably because there's a lack of high-quality information available. And honestly, I learned a lot from these videos. Like, a lot. In fact, I learned everything. I know everything that Wolfe knows. I'm not inadequate. I'm the best VGC player in the world. Well, not really, but truly these videos are invaluable, and I think one of the main draws of his Patreon page. I have to admit, I spent way too much time on the next part of this video.
Chip come through, or you have a bit of extra damage like the Sucker Punch or Leaf Storm, then the Garchomp will go down. And if those things that can take eruptions like Incineroar and Garchomp start to get chipped away,
at different events along the way. And looking at this,
now let's talk about the other two VGC pros whose Patreons I've joined. Meet Joe Ugarte and Brady Smith. Undoubtedly some of the top team builders in VGC, period. So, what do these two offer? Let's take a look. Joe Ugarte is renowned as one of the most skilled team builders ever, often with a focus on more aggressive, fast-paced teams. And his Patreon page is a treasure trove of these types of teams that he's crafted for competition. Scrolling through his page, you'll find a variety of PokePaste and in-game rental codes. And while it's true that he doesn't always write details about his builds, when he does, it's incredibly thorough. This blurry wall of text that's been scrolling in the background is just one of his team write-ups. By comparison, Brady Smith is hailed as one of the best balanced players in the game. For those new to the term, balance typically refers to teams that are highly adaptable and rarely stick to a single strategy, instead relying heavily on team synergy to outmaneuver opponents. Typical example of this would be the classic bulky water fire grass course. Much like Joe, Brady's Patreon page is primarily for posting and sharing his competition teams. However, Brady isn't as regular with his posting as Joe is. In fact, at the time of recording this video, his last post was today, but generally speaking, he only posts like once a month. Before we explore how these two compare to Wolfe Glick, let's address a question that I'm sure many of you are thinking right now. Should you become a patron of these two? And I have to be honest, among them, I tend toward recommending Joe Ugarte. Although both offer similar styles and content, Joe's Patreon delivers like 4 times more material for your money. Remember, this video and my recommendations aren't about their abilities as trainers or their personal characters. It's solely about whether their Patreon content has something to teach us so that we can improve as trainers. While Brady's insights are valuable, the regularity of Joe's updates offer a deeper and more frequent glimpse into the strategies of a top team builder as the meta evolves. So if I had to pick one, I'd go with Joe. Now, the penultimate question, how do these two stack up against the titan of VGC content, Wolfe Glick? Let's revisit our discussion from earlier. Like Joe Ugarte and Brady Smith, Wolfe also shares his tournament teams on Patreon, complete with detailed breakdowns of each team's strategies and components. If I were to choose a Patreon just for team reports and their breakdowns, it would be a pretty tight race amongst all three. Yet, considering the consistency and depth of content, I find it easy to recommend Joe Ugarte and Wolfe Glick equally in this arena. In fact, I think Ugarte and Smith attend more live competitions than Wolfe does, but Joe's more consistent upload schedule means I get more teams to practice with than I often do with the other two. When Joe provides comprehensive team reports, they are as insightful and informative as those by Wolfe Glick. Out of sheer curiosity, I compared a recent team report from both Joe and Wolfe. And interestingly, I found that Wolfe's contained about 648 words, while Ugarte's contained 724, roughly a full page each. The quality of both is unquestionably high, and again, I won't leak their content, but I think it's fair to share just a couple sentences to illustrate a point I'm trying to make. When discussing a specific restricted Pokemon on one of his teams, Wolfe writes, "The EVs are enough to outspeed Modest Ursaluna in Tailwind. A little special attack to try and KO Incineroar with +1 Terra Blast, and the majority in bulk to survive +1 Terrapagos Terra Starstorm in Terra Water if they have a medium amount of investment." So I actually love these types of breakdowns. You can see in just a couple lines, Wolfe clues us in to why he picked the EVs that he does and covers what threats he's gearing up to face and the strategies he's planning on using to counter them. Switching over to Ugarte, when he's talking about one of his team leads, he says, "This lead felt really good into slow teams that didn't have great means to stop Specs Make It Rain plus Spore/Rage Powder. This lead allowed me to exert a lot of immediate pressure and exploit teams that only had single target ways to hit Goldingo." Even from this little snippet, you get a clear picture of what the lead does and why it's effective. This is straightforward and super handy if you're trying to learn how to use the team yourself, which you might be doing if you're buying Joe's Patreon. I hope these little peeks into their write-ups show just how much you can learn from their Patreon content. Perfect, in my opinion, for anyone looking to step up their game in VGC. So with all that said, let's get to the final question. The one all of you have been waiting for if you've stuck with me this long into the video. Would I recommend Wolfe Glick's Patreon? Well, the answer is coming up right after a word from our sponsor,
Shadow Legends.
Just kidding. The answer is yes. While I find that all of the team reports from these creators are top-notch, you just can't beat the value you get from Wolfe Glick's Patreon, especially the user-voted questions. Honestly, the user-voted questions are worth the $10 alone, in my opinion. And this isn't to downplay the others. Joe Ugarte's content, particularly his team reviews, is right up there with Wolfe Glick and definitely worth the $10 if his playstyle resonates with you. What I would do is watch some of his matches on the official Pokemon stream, and if you like what you see, he might be a good person to look into. As for Brady, his content's great, it's just not very frequent. Rather than his Patreon, I would recommend his Twitter, or his X, or whatever it's called. I would recommend that because he posts a lot of his teams and team reports on there for free. Anyway, I hope the video helped you, future champ, and as always, thanks for watching.
Pika pika.
However, Brady isn't as regular with his posting as Joe is. In fact, the last time he uploaded something? Oh, nope, he uploaded today. Oh, I'm going to have to rewrite that. No, I'm not going to rewrite this. We're just going to do it. All right. He's not as... In fact, his last post was... In fact, at the time of recording this video, his last post was today. But generally speaking, he only posts like once a month.